Today's guest is Cienna Kopishki, who is a mom of her 1-year-old son, Urza, and a military spouse, her husband, Patrick. She loves supporting mompreneurs and businesses designed to support parenthood. In fact, during her pregnancy, she was diagnosed with a condition called hypermersey's gravidarum, HG. I know I'm going to butcher that, so you can
That's
correct me
okay.
afterwards. But basically, yeah, so this is a condition that nearly took her life. She was throwing up over 120 times, which led to being hospitalized 11 times. And without being able to hold down any food or water, she weighed 70 pounds. And eventually went into organ failure in her third trimester. Her journey with HG came to an end when her son was born. And then 1 month later, she birthed her business, the Mommy Agency. Now she's on a mission to help small and medium sized businesses grow through social media management. So, Sienna, thank you very much for being
Yeah.
on. And yeah, what a crazy story to kind of birth a business. So I'd love for you to dive into like how all that got started and your experience with it.
Yeah. I mean, so the condition is called hyperemesis gravidarum, HD for short. And, to be honest, I have over 8 years of experience as a social media manager in corporate. And so when I had my son, I was like taken back with how much it would cost for me to go back to work versus childcare and all of these different factors that I never really thought of while I was pregnant, right? And so I said, wow, this is an opportunity for me to be able to figure out how to stay at home, be a stay-at-home wife to to my husband and then a mom to my son, but also for me to use this as an opportunity to make my own income, to continue to grow and develop myself and my business skills. And so I started the Mommy Agency, and it has been really, really amazing. I mean, we're a full service social media management agency, and I love what I do. I love helping businesses grow, but also being able to play with my son whenever I want to and not have to worry about childcare is a perk.
Yeah, 100%. If that was the, original catalyst for
Yeah.
diving into this work, I can only imagine how fulfilling it is to actually be able to experience what so many
Yes.
people actually dream about or never kind of take the courage to actually do. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So yeah, I'd love to then just dive into what are the top problems that you're facing right now?
Mm. So, in my business as a whole, I feel like I'm really, really proud of where we are. However, issues that, I mean, every business has problems, right? No matter how great they look on the outside. One of my biggest issues, and I know this is a downfall of mine, is how I hire my employees. I tend to I am a people first person, which means that a lot of times the business can fail because I'm way too invested in my employees and their lives. So for example, I won't say this person's name, but I have a staff member. And I really struggled at first because I hired this person. I knew that they didn't have any area of expertise in the field, but this person has a degree in marketing and really just asked me if they could have a shot um, in my company. And so I gave this a chance. And we really, really struggled, right? I struggled for a while because I didn't have the time to train this person the way that I thought that I would have an opportunity to train them because business was moving way too quickly. We were getting way too many new clients, and I just needed to focus on the clients that were coming in. But at the same time, I was really scared to fire this person because not that I was scared, but I didn't want to fire them because of the fact that they were about to walk into parenthood themselves, and were pregnant. And so I was worried about how are they going to financially care for their family if I were to let them go, which at the end of the day isn't 100% my concern, but it is something that I care about. And I've had employees in the past where I've really needed to let go, and I held on to them for way too long because I was worried about how they were going to financially care for their family and different things that they had going on in their personal lives, which isn't, again, not my business, but I really do care about all of my team members, sometimes a little too much. And it really shows, and it can hurt my clients and it can hurt me because I'm not putting my foot down and saying, hey, this is unacceptable. And I'm not being the leader that I need to be in certain areas because I overly care.
Got it. So, I mean, right off the bat, right? So, like, boundaries would be something like, does
Yeah.
that resonate with you? Like, the boundaries is something that
Yeah, I mean, I've even tried implementing KPI sheets, tracking to see where my employees are versus where they need to be with when it in regards to client work, how my clients are progressing, that they're directly responsible for, things like that. And a lot of times, what I'm noticing is that the KPIs aren't being met, but I'm overly worried about, okay, is my employee okay? Like, is everything okay at home? Rather than, hey, I noticed that we're not hitting these specific numbers when it comes to this specific client. Things that I should be worried about, I feel like, as a business owner, but I'm not as focused on. And that is definitely my downfall.
got it. So, you've tried to solve this tactically with regards to like implementing KPIs
Yeah,
and, putting in your own processes, whatever, your own SOPs, your own standards
correct.
that people need to hit. Um, but even though those were in place, they got distorted because, yeah, you kind of set the boundaries, but then you didn't really referee them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it. So tell me more about your internal experience because you obviously know the operational solution to this. So tell me about the like internal piece. Like, what are the thoughts that go in your head? What are the emotions that you feel? What is all that like?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I get really overwhelmed sometimes in my own mind because I do wonder, like, I first of all, maybe I should say this. I love all of my employees. I love them like they are my family and they know it, and I treat them like family. And so one thing that continues to pop up in my brain is, oh my gosh, if I fire this person, I mean, everybody that works for me has kids. So my initial thought goes into, how are their kids going to be able to have food on the table? How are the kids going to be able to do X, Y, and Z that they're doing? And so that's where my brain goes. And then I start to feel like, wait, maybe it's me. And I, as a boss, need to be better because I have all of these children who, again, are not my responsibility. And I don't know why my brain goes this far, but I have all of these kids and all these families, that are employed by me that kind of are looking to me to be able to sustain my business and keep my business afloat so that they can survive in a way.
Got
Maybe
it.
that's a
So
bit dramatic.
No, it's okay. I mean, all of you is welcome here. So whatever is like real, by all means, bring that to the table because that's how we're gonna get
Yeah.
somewhere. So yeah, no worries on my end. Um, so in this instance, it's goes beyond boundaries because this is really accepting responsibility for somebody's well-being. Like the way you were speaking, it's
Mhm.
like their kids are actually like my kids, and I need to provide for them.
In essence, yeah. I mean, I never thought about it that way, but I mean, in essence, that's exactly what I'm saying when I'm having these thoughts by myself. Yeah.
Okay, so it's almost like over responsibility.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm saying it that way because I never thought about it in this regard. And I know that obviously I may be over exaggerating in some sense, but these are the true thoughts that come to my mind is I really do wonder, how are these kids going to be okay?
100%. And again, a lot of these patterns we intellectually know, like none of this makes sense. Why am I doing this? This is silly. Like, no,
Yeah,
that's not what I really mean. And, like just if you think of it in a different context, like if you think of it like diet, right? Like we all know we should just move more and eat better, but there's only a small percentage of people that can actually apply that. So the things that we know intellectually is totally different than the emotional logic we actually use to make decisions and actually
right.
act. Okay. So the reason why I bring up that distinction for you is to just normalize this experience of like, I'm saying things that maybe I haven't verbalized out loud and they sound so silly when I say them. To me, I'm like, what I'm trying to just normalize for is like, that's where the gold is, right? Because when you can get down to the core of what is the emotional logic that actually is powering the actions that I take,
Hmm.
now you can actually do something about that. Whereas if you're just focused on like, this doesn't make any sense, then you get into judgment and like, what's wrong with me? Why do I do like, you know what I mean? We get into these doom loops that are completely not useful. So I just am reflecting that back to you to just normalize, like, hey, don't worry about it. Bring whatever's present and know that even if it doesn't make sense on a different level, it absolutely makes sense. So, what's
Okay.
landing for you when I share that?
Yeah, I mean, I just have to step out of my head. I mean, there are things I really need to do that can help my business grow. And, lately I've been really on the fence about letting a specific individual go. Um, and it's just been really hard. It's been a really hard decision because they, I don't know. Again, this goes back into the same conversation that I continuously have in my head, which is about their children. And this person, it's a guy, he just had a baby. And so he's on paternity leave right now. And I took over, right? Paternity, yeah, paternity leave. And so I took over for him while he's away. And as I'm going through all of the work that he has done in the past, I am noticing so many errors and so many problems. And, you know, my husband's like, well, you need to just let him go. Like, you can't have this, especially with client facing work. That's unacceptable. But I can't see that in my heart to say, okay, I'm going to let him go, because A, he's been my employee since I started the business and he has been my everything in the business for me, which is important. But B, because I can't fire him while he's on paternity leave, I don't feel morally comfortable with that. And then when he comes back, I just feel like that would be another hit. Like, okay, you just got off of leave, and now I'm saying, hey, I have to let you go. And it has nothing to do with obviously the child or the leave. But it has everything to do with the level of service that he has been providing our clients, and it hasn't been good. And I don't know how I haven't seen that until this point.
So, firstly, I think it's beautiful how much you actually do care about your people,
Thank
right?
you.
Like talking about like putting a people first approach to a company.
Yeah,
Like it's one thing to say, it's another thing to live it, right? So I just
right.
wanted to acknowledge you for walking your own talk there.
Thank you.
Um, Number two, okay, so if we can just step back from the actual, because like okay, the part that you don't control is somebody else, whether they're a family
Right.
member, an employee, a partner. Like at the end of the day, they influence us, but we only control what it is
Ourselves. Yeah.
that we do, right? So who would you be if you did fire somebody who just had a kid?
I don't think I would be like, that's not who I am. It just doesn't sit right with me. The name of my company is called the Mommy Agency. So, for me, we're a, my whole company culture is family. We have two departments. We're not even that big of a company. My business started when my son was 1 month. So we've been around for 14 months now, so a
So
little
I'm just
over a
gonna
year.
pause you right, not because I want to cut you
Oh,
off
no,
and don't
that's
feel
okay.
like what you're saying is relevant. Just because I want you to notice where your brain is going to, right? So like I asked you a question about, okay, well, who would you be like if you did fire somebody? And it's like your brain went to, well, like we started at this time and this was my first, like it just went into on a tangent, right? So it wants to avoid the
Yeah,
question. So put a different way, it's not necessarily that like basically what I'm asking is like if you did, so hypothetical situation, I'm not saying like you know your business best and this isn't about you should do this or do that, like you're the only one that gets to make that choice.
right.
This is about taking the scenario that tomorrow you fire somebody who just had a kid. What does that mean about you? Who are you at that moment if that were to happen?
Um, if if that were to happen, I don't know how I would justify that in my head. That's the only
Okay.
explanation that I
So
could.
let's just say, take it out of context that it's you, somebody who has a similar business as you, just fired somebody who had a kid. I want you to be as petty and judgmental towards that person and just tell me what comes to mind.
I just feel like that's heartless.
Okay.
That's a very heartless person or someone who prioritizes a business first. Like money comes before people person. That's how I would describe that person.
Okay. Anything else? Like if you could be as petty as possible and like this person would never know, how would you judge them?
I would really just in my mind, that's a good question. I know that every business owner is so different and is going to make their own judgment, but I think if someone is capable of letting someone go who just had a kid, to me, that just means you have no moral compass. You are someone who truly puts your business, your money, your income, and your family's needs before other people. And I can understand where sometimes that's necessary in business. Um, but I don't support that behavior. Like I all of my staff has 1 month of maternity and paternity leave. So you have 1 month to fully bond with your baby, and then when you come back to work, since we're all remote, you're welcome to have your baby with you while you work. Like I have no issues with babies on meetings and things like that. In fact, we my son is actually the oldest child in my entire company, and he's one. So that says a lot about who we are. Um, Mostly everyone is stay-at-home moms. He's the guy we're talking about is the only male that I have in my company. And now he is a dad. So
Got it. Okay. So if I were to encompass that, like basically like no moral compass would qualify as like somebody firing somebody who just had a kid, you have no moral compass. Like with that,
sure. Yeah, I guess that's what I was saying.
I
So
mean, you tell me, it's like what words resonate with you? Like that's
no,
the
I
one that
mean
I heard, but you tell me.
that's what I was saying. I guess I just saying that out loud is kind of I don't know, kind of rude. Because there are times where it's 100% necessary to put your business first, and I get that. I have yet to do that. And again, that's what we're talking about today. Mm.
Correct. So what I wanted to then do is juxtapose that to, okay, so firing somebody who just had a kid, 100% not like cool on the surface,
Right.
no moral compass. I can understand this part of you that cares about people and that doesn't want to inflict that kind of hurt to others. Totally
Mhm.
valid, totally cool. I think it's a big part of who you are.
Thank you.
Now, contrast that or compare that to that same individual who, well, bring it back to yourself. So you have a very young child.
Yes.
So it's not like you're out of the sphere of the people that you are around. Like whether
Right.
there's zero, there's one, yeah, there's different experiences that are going to be had. But
Right.
like, let's just say it's in the same ballpark of somebody totally dependent on you.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, that same person that you have a moral compass against firing, they are putting very real strains on your ability to be with your child because you have to do work that's theirs, threatening to renewal of contracts, threatening to referrals, threatening to getting new business because you're putting out fires that you shouldn't need to because of a lack of performance.
Hmm.
So, yeah, you have no moral compass if you let somebody go, but why does that moral compass not apply to you who's taking all the risk and
Yeah.
actually putting your neck out there?
That's a really good question, and I don't know how to answer it fully. The only thing I can say is I've had a situation like that similar to this in the past, where I had a really hard time firing a single mom. And I really, at the end of the day, I had to let her go. I kept her for 3 months longer than I should have. And she costed me half of my business. And it wasn't until I lost half of my clients and my income that I was like, I need to let you go. I can't do this. And even then, I really struggled with firing her because I cried. I like actually cried for a very long time. And I was just like, I don't want to fire her. She's a single mom. She lives alone. I don't know how she's going to be able to afford her rent if I let her go, but she's costing me clients. And these are clients. Just like I love my team, I love my clients, like just like I love my team. And my clients will tell you that because all of them have my cell phone number and I talk to them like they're my friends. And I was able to get my clients back, right? After I've explained the situation, give them discounts, and I had to remedy the whole situation with all of them. But at the end of the day, I still lost clients, right? And that I actually ended up losing one, and they're not, I don't think they're going to come back, which is really disheartening because I have done so much work on their account before I hired this person in the first place. So much really good work. And I really, truly held this company in my heart that, I was doing all this work for, and she completely ruined that relationship for us. And so that is one thing that I will not allow. Like I have learned a valuable lesson from that experience, that impacting clients, their businesses, that's my reputation on the line. I will never allow that to happen again. And my clients have seen that, but I know that right now, that if I continue going down the path that I'm going with this person, that it could be granted, I mean, I was able to fix it before anybody noticed any issues, but it could have became a situation where we lost another client, or something was going on because of the lack of attention to detail that this specific person that's on paternity leave right now has been implementing. um these are concerns of mine, and I don't want to put any clients. I mean, if you're investing into a service, you expect the best results. And I personally deliver the best results, but I also know that I can't do everything by myself, which is why I have my team. So
100%. So then if you were to rewind that back and look at that employee that did cost you half your business
mhm.
before you finally pulled the trigger, were there instances where you were painting red flags green?
Yeah, there the biggest one was in reference to money. I pay my employees very well, and this specific person I was paying about $5,000 a month, and she wanted closer to $7,000 a month, which doesn't make any logical sense for our business and the structure. And there's no way I could, give that to her. And she continued to bother me, or like ask me to make 7K a month. And so that was the first red flag, even though I specifically explained to her when I hired her, this is going to be the salary. I even increased the salary because she was only supposed to make, I think, $4,000 a month. So,
Okay, so just pause right there again, right? Because
yeah,
like your brain has a very good way of like knowing the details of the situation and then
yeah,
like how you like navigated around it. What I really want to just bring you back to, because I think it's super important, is like at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, right? As the
mhm,
owner, as the leader, as so it's like this is about the ownership, right? So if you were painting red flags green even prior to it coming to this threshold,
mhm,
right? Everything you're describing so far puts you in like a martyr category.
mm,
Everybody's needs supersede mine, right? Everybody's situations are more important than my own. And again, I'm just going off of our conversation today, but like you can
right,
make the argument of like you watching out for other people's kids more than they're watching out themselves. Because think about it. If their situation is so precarious, then why are they so sloppy with their work? Right? It's like
mm,
you ignore. the red flags of like, okay, well, if your situation is as bad as I'm painting it out to be, where is
Mhm.
your ownership that the situation is actually that bad? Right?
Yeah.
My clients have my cell phone. Okay, it's a beautiful thing if you want to be accessible to your clients, but I would also imagine that you've had plenty of clients who have also crossed boundaries with you and just like been way like solve my problem, like gone like outside of scope. Like, would
Yeah.
that be, yeah,
I did in the beginning, and I I really reeled it in with my clients because the one client that I ended up losing that I did all of this valuable work for, they were only paying us for social media management. And then one day I just kept getting phone calls and they were like, Sienna, could your team handle our website? Which isn't something that we do, but I agreed to do it. And then my web developer got sick, so then I had to actually do it, but I personally can't, I'm not a web developer. So then I had to pay out of pocket $2,500 to get their website finalized for them. And they did not pay me a dime for their website. They only paid me for what we were doing, which was social media management. And then at some point they said, well, we want to add on TikTok. Could you just post a couple of videos here? And I said yes without actually thinking. And then it became more. So it became their website, it became TikTok, it became Instagram. And then at some point it was YouTube and Twitter. And then, and I was only getting paid for Instagram management. And then it also became their not blog, their newsletter. So then I was sending out newsletters and I was doing like all of these different jobs, but I was only getting paid for one job, which was Instagram management. And that was hard because then I had to pay my employees off of that. And I was struggling with, okay, I have all of this work to do, very little time, and I'm spending 10, 15 hours a day on one client, and we have other clients that need to be serviced. How do I handle that situation? So I have dialed back. I no longer answer my phone for my clients outside of business hours. And I just put a pin in the conversation till the next business hour.
beautiful. So it's like, okay, then the next through line here is like, okay, you have to crash in order to actually like
Yeah,
quote unquote learn, right? So what I'm getting at here is really like there is a part of your self identity that really associates with finding value off of being selfless to the degree that it's actually self-sacrifice,
right,
right? Like I'm valuable if I self-sacrifice, right? There's this ripple effect of that to then be overly responsible for things that you're not actually responsible for, to
hmm,
really have almost no boundaries, and then to be an overwhelm because you're just having to deal with all of the leakages that happen
right.
because of that, right? So before I go on, how does that land for you?
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how much I thoroughly, sorry, I'm just going to put this down. I don't know how much I thoroughly like to hear that, but it's necessary to hear for growth purposes.
Correct. And I applaud you for that because, yeah, I agree with you. It's always more fun to be on this end of the like interaction where you're the one, like I've been on both, but yeah, in general,
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying. So again, I want to acknowledge you for being able to like really receive it and be open to it because it's not an easy thing to have the mirror shown at you,
right.
right?
That's
So
true.
given all of that, do you think with all these patterns in place, your leadership right now is at the place where it could take the business to the next level?
I think that if I were, and this is a conversation I've been having with myself, I do think that if I were to get a little bit more business minded, right? and a little less personal with my employees. I don't need to know every detail of their lives. And we're really, really a small company as far as like how many, I think my sales team only has 3 people, and then my operations has 2 people. And then there's me. And so that's five. I have five, so that's 5 employees. Sorry, I don't know why I had to count that. But I think that if I were to really hone in on removing people that are not serving my clients appropriately, are not hitting KPIs, are not, following SOPs, which is important for the growth of the business. I think that my business can grow properly because I have other, the rest of my team is absolutely amazing at what they do, and I haven't had any issues. I've even been working with myself to make sure that when I interview, that I'm paying attention to red flags in the interview, and I'm not rushing to make a hiring decision, which is, I think, how I ended up in the situation with those 2 employees in the first place. Is I was all of a sudden my business started growing. And as I'm sure you may predict, being a stay-at-home mom, it's kind of hard to take on a bunch of clients on your own while also watching a baby, right? I've had the business since he was only a month old. So taking care of him, having all of these clients come in, which has been absolutely wonderful. And I'm so grateful for all of our clients. But having all of that has just been a lot. And so I rushed to hire, which you should never do. And that's what I learned. So,
So, yeah, I don't think anybody doubts your ability to take on and hold a lot. I think that's abundantly obvious just from like the short conversation.
yeah.
Um, what I want to then rewind to is like what I asked you is, okay, do you think with these patterns and these aspects and limits of head trash,
Hmm.
you have like you're at the leadership level where you can take the business to the next level? Where your mind went to was giving me all of the tactical answers on like what needs to happen. And abundantly clear, you know exactly operationally what needs to
Yeah.
happen, right? But your brain skirted the question once again. So,
Mm.
right, if you hold space for that and allow yourself to really like be with that, do you have the leadership to take the business to the next level given the patterns that have been brought forth today?
Not at this moment, not until I figure out how to fully, in a mental capacity wise, not tactical, not until I can figure out how to mentally remove this stress of I'm responsible for all of my employees, their husbands or wives, and their children. Once I remove that,
Correct.
I will be a better leader.
100%. And I'm glad that that's actually landing for you. So, what do you think is the gap that's there right now for you to step into that leadership?
Yeah, I think I need to just understand my goals, understand where I want to take our business. Um, and then I need to sit down and really kind of look at the whole company and go, which parts of my business now are serving the goals that I want to step into? And then kind of eliminate things that do not serve our goals.
Got it. So, part of this is clarity on
Mhm.
actually where it is that I want to go, right?
Right, of
And then having a very honest look at, trimming the pieces that aren't aligned with that,
course.
which means you're going to come head to head with the same patterns we just discussed. You're
Hmm.
going to have to get confrontational. You're going to have to set and hold and referee your boundaries. You're going to have to say no when you would normally say yes, right? So kind of going back to the leadership limits.
Right.
So who or what would you be if these limits weren't in place?
Yeah, sorry, I needed to pause for that, but I don't know. I guess I would be someone who is capable of stepping into her true power and able to lead a team the way that teams are supposed to be led. I feel like, so what I mean, I'll elaborate a little bit more about that, but I feel like when I hear some of my friends who are in businesses, and I have one friend, her business is making close to 1 mil a month right now, which is absolutely amazing. And I'm really happy for her. And one thing that I have seen with her, because she's also one of our clients, is that she really steps up when it's time to step up as a leader. She does not allow people to mess with her money, I guess is how I would say that. I haven't quite figured that out yet, how to navigate those types of conversations. And I have watched her call people out, which is never a comfortable thing, I'm sure, on her end to do, but it's what's necessary to be done in order for her business to grow. I've also watched her fire someone who was there from day one of her business because that person was no longer able to hold up, their job responsibilities the way that they were 2 years ago when she started her business. So I've learned a lot from just watching her, right? Like she's our client, but I also go to all of her marketing meetings and things like that, so I can sit in on them and um, help her with any ideas or obstacles that may be challenging to her marketing wise. And so I aspire to be similar to that, not exactly 100% the way I don't 100% agree with everything, but in a way where I'm able to say, hey, so and so, this isn't working. Why are these KPIs not met? What's happening here? What's actually going on? And having those real conversations that make you a leader, that make you go, okay, I am not this person's friend, right? This person is my employee, which has always been a very um, bad thing for me, is I kind of associate with them as my friends, or I over communicate or overshare my life in this, and then they overshare their lives, and now I have this relationship with all of my employees, and that's not really acceptable or normal. But that is the culture that I've built because I do want them to come to me if they're having any issues, because one thing I have learned is that your home life can really impact what's happening at work. So
Yeah, 100%. So what would like the qualities that you saw in this
yeah.
other, like in your friend and client and like this person that you aspire to be, what are the qualities that you see in her that you would have to embody to get to your next level as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, she's one thing that I really, really love about her is her ability to speak her mind and to say, hey, this is not working. And that is something that I have not done with my employees. Um, Even if I have noticed that they're not doing something right, a lot of times I get way too nervous to talk to them about it. So I put it in an email and I send them an email and I say, hey, I noticed X, Y, and Z. Could you, what's going on? But she doesn't do that. She talks to them directly. And I think that is an area where I'm truly struggling. Like, even when I have to fire someone, I guess you could say that I'm, kind of weak in this area is the nicest way that I could say that about myself. But I can't fire someone by looking at them. And so a lot of times, if since my whole company is remote, a lot of times what I do is I open our Zoom, but then I put another screen or another like web browser in front of it, and then I have those conversations. But that isn't showing up as a leader. That isn't stepping into my full self, and that isn't something that my friend would do. And so if I were to mirror those things about her, I feel like I would be a stronger person, but also a better leader.
100%, right? So what I'm hearing here is like, okay, so who would I be without these inner limits, these leadership limits? So somebody who steps into her true power,
Mm-hmm.
right? That would allow her to lead, or allow you rather to lead the team properly. Speaking your mind, which I've also heard as like really finding your voice. And
Yeah.
I think that the big one for you is like being okay when others aren't okay.
Right.
Okay. So, what would you create as a leader who embodies these qualities?
You're asking such good questions. I don't even know how to respond. Um, I would create an environment where people come to work, they do their job. It doesn't mean that we still can't have fun, but jobs would get done. And on top of that, my clients would be more satisfied. Not that my clients aren't satisfied currently, I would say, because we do communicate with our clients quite a bit, especially myself. And I will say all of our clients are currently happy with our services, which makes me really happy, as the owner of the company. But to produce better results for my clients is where I really want us to go in 2023. Of course, well within the package that they're paying for, right? Not going over those boundaries again. That's one thing I learned last year. But just kind of making sure that my clients' businesses are growing at a faster rate. And I know that for a fact, if I were to step up better as a leader, my clients would see extreme growth more than they're seeing right now, which is still very good. But I would like to see more for them.
And why do you think that would be the case?
I think that because I think that if I were to show up, my team members will feel that energy in a sense, and they're going to go and say, okay, Cienna wants these expectations. I'm going to hit them for her because I already have such a good relationship with my employees. I feel like they would trust me at that point a little bit more, and that they're going to step into their true selves, which will allow them to work harder for my clients, for our clients, I should say.
Perfect. So, one aspect is the actual employees, right?
Hmm.
So, they would show up differently because you're showing up differently.
Right.
Now, consider how much energy, time, mental real estate leaks you currently experience by all of the overwhelm that your leadership limits produce, whether you're having to do work that isn't technically yours, whether you're, over delivering beyond scope, whether you're thinking and rethinking and rewriting emails because you don't want to say something directly. Like, how
Hmm.
much leakages are there in your day to day right now that could be spent in solving better problems for your clients or even getting new clients?
Yeah, I mean, well, I do have an entire sales team, so it is their responsibility to find us new clients, but you're completely right. Like at the end of the day, there is a lot of productivity that is being mismanaged, and the time could be spent doing other things. Like when I hired my team, I specifically said I need to step back. And for a while, I did take a step back, and I spent more time with my son than I did in the business, other than, of course, doing CEO tasks like admin tasks and, financial things, right? And I just got to oversee and kind of just check in, make sure everything was good, but also not to a point where I'm so distant that I don't know what's going on with all of my clients day to day or my employees day to day. And that was really nice. I mean, that was only for a couple of months. Right now, I am stepping in, like I mentioned in the beginning of this show, because I'm stepping in a little bit more than usual. Because one of my employees is on paternity leave. And so I chose to cover for him rather than hire someone like a virtual assistant for the temporary time being. Um, and so, but it's a lot. And I didn't realize like his work. And then I still have my own work. And then I still have my son who is, like you said earlier, 100% dependent on me because he's still a baby. I mean, he's one, but he's still a baby. So, and he just learned how to walk, which is very scary. So it's like all of these things that are going on. And I have to be cognizant of the fact that I may be a little stretched thin right now.
Correct, which is reflective of the overwhelm. So I'm not
Yeah.
surprised that that's the case at all. The last part that I just wanted to reflect back to you. So when I essentially asked you, okay, so what would you create from being and having all of the leadership qualities you spoke about before? So stepping into my true power, leading my team properly, speaking my mind, having my voice, being okay when others aren't okay. Right? I asked, okay, so from that state, if you could be in that state, what would you create? Right? The first part of you was like, oh, I don't even know. Right. So there's another part of you that's like so lost in the storm of these patterns that it's actually hard to imagine thinking bigger beyond the overwhelm that's currently
Hmm.
present, you know? And okay, you allowed yourself to kind of sit with that. And then where your mind went to is, okay, well, we would actually just get better results.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason that I wanted to bring that back to you is like you have such like a great CEO energy to you
Thank you.
that it's almost like a shame to see you think so small
Mm,
about what's possible when you remove these inner patterns, right? Because I essentially asked you if you could be the leader that has close the gaps on everything that you're missing right now, what would you create? The best that your mind came up with at the time was like, well, we probably should get better results for our clients.
hmm.
Right. Whereas in my head, I'm like, I'm surprised you're not telling me we would like double, triple our business because I'm firing on all cylinders and I don't have all this hemorrhaging energy going towards places where it doesn't need to go.
Right. That's
Right.
important
So
too.
what comes
Yeah.
up for you when I reflect that back?
Yeah, I mean that's super important. My passion has always been in I love what our sales team does. But you're still right. Like a lot of my energy could be focused on how is my sales team even doing, right? How can I support them more? How can I handle like even recently I started taking on a couple of sales calls with potential clients on top of everything else that I mentioned, which is a lot, but I love sales and I love being able to truly help businesses thrive on social media. I'm really good at it. um but I mean everything, I'm sorry, I'm like looking up because I'm processing, but everything that you have said, it just it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that is also another thing. Not only will our current clients see better results, but we would be able to double our income because I would be able to split my time and say, okay, this part of my day I'm going to focus on seeing what the operations department is doing. This part of my day I can check in with our sales department, see how my sales team is doing, what support do they need from me, those types of things, and just making sure that I'm fully embodying what a leader needs to be. And I don't know, like this whole conversation has given me in my mind right now, like actionable steps that I need to take moving forward so I can be a better leader and so I can show up for my company, so I can show up for my team and for my clients, in no particular order. But just making sure that I'm there for everyone, but also that I'm here for myself because I also matter.
100%. And like I'm so glad you were able to go there because I think if you rewind back, like let's just say this, recording or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the energy you just brought into that last answer was by far the highest that you've had so far. Because it's also the most authentic one. It's the first time you've said something like, yeah, like I'd actually show up for myself, right? That's actually the first selfish thing you've said all day
Yeah,
today. And
that's
I say
true.
selfish from
Right.
like a self-honoring place, not
Yeah.
I'm taking away from others. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Not only would you hold everybody accountable and the ship is running on all cylinders, but like, yeah, I'd be happier. I'd be more fulfilled, which means I would perform better. I would show up for my family better. I would have bigger impact because we really care about people. So like we'd see more people win because I clearly see your whole like you want the win-win situations across the board.
Yeah, I do.
So I'm like that, right? Like it took us a long time of like prompting to get you there, but it's like that is like CEO Cienna next level that's what I see as the reason to
Mm,
address and overcome all of these limits, because that's what's waiting for you on the other side.
yeah.
So, how does that land for you?
No, that it everything sounds really, really great. And I think not that my actionable step is that I need to fire people, but I think I do need to sit down with myself and with my goals and figure out, okay, Sienna, where are we going realistically? Where do you want to go? And who is on this ship that isn't rowing the boat? Like who's on this ship that isn't helping the boat move? And kind of sitting down with those key individuals and going, okay, let's talk about this. That part's still a little uncomfortable for me because this is only one conversation, but I can practice with my husband. And just trying to figure out, how do I navigate those types of conversations from here? So this way, I don't have anyone on this boat who is digging a hole into the boat and letting water in, which is not okay with me. Like I want to grow. I mean, we're 1 year in business and revenue wise, we're doing pretty well. And I'm very happy. But most importantly, because I always think about how my clients are doing above me. Most importantly, my clients are doing really well financially speaking too, because I make sure that they all are hitting their revenue goals. But I have had adjusted revenue goals for myself, and I think I need to fix that. I need to work on it.
100%. So yeah, I'm glad that that's landing for you. So or rather on that note,
Yeah.
if you want to just close us off and kind of in your words summarize, what did you come into this conversation thinking were like the issues you needed to solve, and then what were your realizations as a
Yeah.
result?
So, I mean, I came into this conversation and I wasn't 100% sure where it was going to go. But I think, the problems that I had were I really didn't know how to fully show up as a leader, how to, I guess, in my words, I overly care about my team members that I don't put the business first in any means. And so now I'm realizing it is possible to kind of put both, right? Having those clear boundaries with my employees, with my team members, making sure that they're able to hit their goals, but also too, if they're not saying, hey, unfortunately this isn't working, I have to let you go, and it has nothing to do with anything that's going on in your personal life, but everything to do with how the business is affected at the end of the day, which I cannot allow to be affected because this is my income too. Like I have a child that I also have to support. I mean, so I've learned a lot of valuable pieces of information, and I think I'm going to be taking away like what needs to happen next, which is putting together, my to-do list of okay, what's happening, what's not happening, how do we fix, the missing dots, and kind of progress as a company.
Beautiful. Love it. And yeah, I think that summarizes everything that you've kind of shared with us today. So beautifully done. I know it's not the easiest of things to do, like you said, with regards to the mirror. So why don't you just close us off and let everybody know where to find you, and who's the best person to find you?
Yeah. So, if you guys are looking for a social media manager, my team is the name of my company is called the Mommy Agency. And we are accessible on Instagram at the.mommy.agency or by email. And the best email would be mine. It's Cienna, Cienna at themommyagency.net, which is also our website, themommyagency.net. And I look forward to connecting with anyone.
Beautiful. Well, as always, we'll include that in the show notes. So Sienna, thank you very much for coming on, and for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.